Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday class with Guy Finley. My name is Doug. I'm here in Southern Oregon with some fellow students, and we welcome you from wherever you are there for our class today. And let me give you, just in case you're new, here's a little bit of the format. Guy will speak for about 60 minutes. We'll take a 5-minute break. You'll see a video. So take a break for 5 minutes and come back. With Guy might have further comments, and then we'll go into questions and answers. So we look for about a 90-minute class, and if you can stay for all of it, that's great. That's the best. If you have to leave, these are recorded, and you can find those on our website. And we all of you here get emails and reminders for all of our classes, so you'll see emails and reminders for that as well. So again, that's the format for our class today. And I think that's all we need to get started right now. So let's bring Guy in. And Guy, would you like me to read the topic and key lesson?
Yes, please.
All right. Our topic today is step back from your old view of life and see a whole new you. And the key lesson reads, the sleeping mind is a ghost. It doesn't want to see how much it loves the haunted house it claims it can't stand living in, but yet won't leave. All right, Guy, I'll see you after the talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready, set, go. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, students here in Florida and, of course, in Oregon, where you're gathered, and wherever you are. I have a couple quick words to set the stage, then a couple of old stories to light the stage, and then we'll get into the story itself. This talk is seemingly in two parts, but they're not two parts any more than the wings on the other side of each other on a dove are separate. They serve a single purpose. And I'll do the level best that I can to ensure you understand the relationship between these two specific, seemingly separate ideas, and more importantly, that you can grasp them so that these ideas, as they are intended to do, might lift you above your present understanding, which is the whole point of every talk that we have, that we might come into a new world within ourselves. I don't know if you've ever stopped to think about it. From where comes these insights, these epiphanies, these moments that make everything that was prior to them seem drab relative to what is revealed and that you discover within yourself? And this is what we're going to look at together. So let's get started. First, an old story, one of my favorites from a long time ago. Here's two men, they work together erecting steel foundations, whatever it is that they do, and they're up there on one of these girders. And they've been working for 6 months, and for 6 months one of the men has been listening to Stan, we'll say Stan is his name, complain about his sandwich. How every day it's the stupid same sandwich. He wishes it wasn't that way. And one day, Art, who is a friend of Stan, who never stops complaining, says, look, it's not that I don't enjoy my lunch with you, but I mean, for heaven's sakes, man, why keep complaining? Why not just ask your wife to make you a different sandwich? What would be the problem with that? To which Stan says, well, I'm not married. Oh, he says, well, if you're not married, then who makes your sandwich? To which Stan replies, I do. Now, in case that's not stunning enough, it indicates that here's someone complaining all the time about something that he does to himself. Next little story. Ever heard the expression, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then what?
It is a duck.
I would say most likely it's a duck. You've heard that before, right? It's sort of simple logic. Well, what if every day, even though you say you seek something new and different, if every day, no matter what you do, it turns out that really nothing changes about your life, then what is it that tells you? and I get nothing. How can I set out to ensure my life changes and it remains the same? Unless there's something inside of me that is dedicated to seeing that even though I am walking and quacking like a duck, still I am not making the changes in the content of myself required to have a different kind of day. I mean, every once in a while, if you can even suspect the truth of that, we're brought face to face with a certain kind of truth that seems so evident but simple that we just overlook it. But once we reveal it to ourselves, or more accurately, once it's revealed to us, we start to see something that when you do, I promise you it will change your life. And nothing will change until you do. Not because I say so, but because it's just a fact. Without knowing it, every single day, without the awareness of it at all, something in us, we set out with the secret intention of remaining the same human being we were the day before. Now, you wouldn't believe that about yourself, would you? You know, I get up, I meditate. You know, I try to eat better food. I do my level best. I make an intention not to criticize or complain and all the rest of that. But as we talked about yesterday, when push comes to shove, what happens? Up comes the complainer. Up comes the one reacting and negative, full of confidence that the conflict they're in is produced by some character that they have to deal with in life, even if it's their own nature. So we say that we want peace and freedom. Some of us will profess that we want a deeper relationship with the divine, and if not the divine itself, at least with higher principles. But psychologically speaking, and I'm asking you to see this isn't for my edification. Psychologically speaking, most of the time we spend defending old beliefs, preserving relationships from the past, some that we like because we get a nice feeling when we think about them, others that we are just negative like that when the name of that person comes up. And all of that without knowing it, to ensure that what is known and familiar in us remains in place, which is the principal activity of an unseen dominant sense of self responsible for creating the life that we have, and then lives in conflict with what it's created, saying it wishes it wasn't like that. Isn't that a pattern? Don't we run into all the time? Don't we run into all of the time these relationships in which, when we run into them, we can't believe that we've run into it again, and we're sure once again it's because of this person or this circumstance. Not because I'm complicit in the continuity of that pattern, but rather some pattern above and beyond my ability to control it keeps pressing down on me and ensuring that I have this pain. Would you say that's accurate? I'm asking the students in the room.
Yes.
But if it is, why don't you suspect it? I mean, really, if every day, under certain circumstances, up comes the exact same content in myself, and it does. Why can't I suspect to some reasonable doubt that I don't see it, I can't believe it's true, but there is something tenacious inside of this nature that just wants to hold on to whatever it is that it holds on to, because the tighter it holds on to it, the more sure it is, and the identity confirmed that anything that challenges it should bring up this pain, this kind of reaction. Do you see it? Talking to a fairly reluctant group of students. I wonder if that's the way it is out there too. Why in the name of God would you want to protect what has been a pain in your life your whole time? So if I see it, it brings up what we might think of as being an unthinkable question. If there's someone or something that lives inside of this nature that, as evidence would seem to prove, is dedicated to reliving who and what it has been, What in the name of God wants to remain that nature, that person? And if there is something that wants to remain that way, and this is up to you, not one thing I can say or do is ever going to change how you react to the conditions that are changing around you. If that's true, how in the name of God am I going to transcend that nature? I don't even see it. I don't see it until it's talking. I don't see it till it's complaining. I don't see it until it's irritated, impatient. I don't see it until it has found something to blame for the discomfort that it's in. Then I don't see that nature. I see what that nature points to. And then I believe trying to change that condition is what it means to change my life. And it's never changed my life. I might have changed conditions. How many of you have changed conditions, deliberately or not, 10,000 times? Holy cow. So many things have changed, and I'm still a grumpy, snorty, whatever it is. I'm like that. I'm still that way. I pout. I think about my enemies. And when I'm really irritable, I try to stay away from everyone who's nothing but an irritation to me. And I call that life. Is that a life? I'm asking you. How do I get past that? That's what I want to look at with you today. So that you can see at least the possibility of it. That's the best that I can do. I can remind you of something that has been forgotten, a capacity, an aspect of your consciousness that's asleep, that as it's reminded, God willing, that seed stirs, and as it stirs, out of it grows an interest, which is all you can have, an interest in discovering what has remained hidden from you. So let's get into it. This is called a major transition. Nice deep breath. Shake off whatever stress you've already fallen into. Our present mind, and I've spoken this before, I won't take too much time on it. Our present level, our mind is what I call object-oriented. Do any of you remember me talking about an object-oriented mind? What is an object-oriented mind? For those of you who haven't, a quick review. An object-oriented mind is one where something catches my attention. Like I look over and I'm in a restaurant and I see somebody, whatever they're doing, I look at my plate, it's not the right food. It doesn't matter what it is. My mind is drawn to an object. Now it seems innocent that my mind is drawn to the object, that my attention goes there, but my mind goes to that object because as it goes to it, it already knows the content it's been drawn to. When you get negative because you look at something, your mind already had that resistance built into it. So the minute your mind is drawn to whatever object it is, that person, that place, that time, your mind can't be drawn to it without having been drawn to that object, you entering into a relationship with the content of that object, the content of that memory, the content of that experience. So an object-oriented mind is one that sits someplace, and then all of a sudden, a thought comes. You're drawn to that thought. Why? Because that object of the mind in that moment is already filled with the content that mind, when it goes to that content, will go, no, that's not right. And then blame what that content represents, the image or the idea, instead of seeing it's looking at itself, resisting itself, and suffering itself. That's an object-oriented mind. Do you have that with me? Yeah. So the mind falls on something, it names it, then it identifies with the experience inherent in the name. Every name has an experience that's connected to it. You can't think of a name that doesn't have an experience connected to it. Then a reaction comes up from that experience, and that reaction gives birth to another thought, and the next thought is named, and on this goes, conclusion after another, that turns into a contusion, that's a fancy word for a bruise, that hurts and hurts us, and then we blame others for the fact that we're blue. Never mind.
Black and blue.
Do you see this? Because I want to go on. So what happens is all that's going on. You can see a machination, right? That machination, everything that is produced from that machinery, produces what we're going to call a familiar pattern. Something we also don't see. Our thoughts always grouped together, supported by certain feelings and sensations, that as they group together and become an object. So first there's the thought. The thought produces a whole host of other things, and eventually it forms a pattern. So that you don't have to think about anything. Thinking is being done for you. It just rolls along. Why? Because it's part of that pattern. So you're actually engaged in what you think you're thinking about, when in truth you've been drawn into a world filled with these patterns of concept, thought. And as you get involved in these patterns, you begin to experience what? The content of that pattern, but more importantly, you begin to experience, why would any of you agree to enter into a prison pattern? Not a trick question. Well, of course I wouldn't do that. Why? I can see it's a prison. I can see if I go into that regret, if I go into that anger, if I go into that anxiety, I can see that it's a prison. And I didn't bring it up. Something object came and I jumped into it. I slammed the gate shut on myself. And then I'm sitting there going, let me out, let me out. Well, no one put you in. You went in. The fox blames the trap, said Blake. So here I'm in. Now, what am I in? Well, I think I'm in some condition. No, you're not in a condition. You're in a pattern of thought that you can't see. Because if you could see it, would you stay inside that pattern? Yes or no? Yes. Of course I would. I wouldn't never agree to stay in a punishing pattern. Would an addict agree to stay in an addiction? An addiction's a pattern, isn't it? A physio-psychological one, but nevertheless a pattern. So I'm in a pattern, but I don't see it. Why don't I see it? Big question. I don't want to challenge you. I actually do want to challenge you, but only to the limit that I think you can be challenged. Why can't I see the pattern? Anybody? Okay. I can't see the pattern because the background with which I am looking at the pattern substantiates the necessity of the pattern and my relationship to it. We see everything through a background. There's always a background to every negative reaction you have. You can't have an enemy without the background of the past, without the background of some painful experience, whether it's a person who's your enemy or the heat that's your enemy or whatever it might be that sets you off. There is no getting set off without some background from which you are looking at that thought, that feeling, or that pattern. So I see what this background has brought up out of it and then establishes as real and then gives me the next background, which is my past, to look at this condition so I can escape it. Please, do you see this with me? I want so badly to be clear. Yeah. So the repetition of these familiar psychological movements that I believe are always unique and special to me aren't unique and special to me. They're needed by this part of myself that needs to preserve the pattern and the conditional person that appears out of it. And that's why we don't change. Because we try to change by consulting that nature and looking to the background it provides that doesn't do anything except promise one day I'll get out of that prison and then show me the way out of it, which is part of the background and the nature trapped by it. Everybody following me? Mm-hmm. Now see, if you were following me, and I'm not saying you're not, this is very sobering. One way I know when people have not seen anything is when they're all excited about what they've seen. Not that there aren't epiphanies of a certain nature that help release you, but first, this sobering effect, the seriousness, not unhappiness, not negativity. What does it mean to be sober? It means to not be high. To not be high on thoughts, wanted or not. A sobering experience. Why is the experience of seeing, please, that when I'm just sitting at home and eating my curds and whey, that the spider who comes down and sits down beside her is a fabrication of a mind that got triggered into an object. The object sees thoughts and feelings. It becomes a web. As I'm stuck in this web of my own thinking, I have to get out. Get out of what? the spider that's coming, the thing that's the consequence of this web. Do you see it with me? So that it's sobering because I begin to recognize there's a fallacy. My whole life is predicated on this idea of escaping my level of self. That's why my spiritual life, all that stuff, I'm going to get out. I just don't have the secret yet. I haven't been touched on the forehead by that master who's going to open me up, whatever nonsense it is that a human being believes in. And it's all nonsense, believe me. I can tell you, there's not a road I haven't been down. You can get Shakti potted to death and it doesn't change the actual nature. What it actually does is ingrain inside of you a certain bitterness because now you've seen something and you have no way to access it. Just because somebody can open you up a little bit doesn't mean you stay open. Instead, you start to realize how closed you are because how limited is this nature if this is really a possibility. And that's a whole other talk, but I don't want to get into it now. So, this is why, if you're understanding me, wow. It's not a person that I'm stuck with, not a problem I'm stuck with. I'm stuck in a pattern that always looks at this person and that problem the exact same way from the same background and then looks to itself to escape itself, and all it does is repeat itself in a pattern it can't see. So the whole thing becomes a pattern. People pride themselves on being unique. Do you know that no sleeping human being is unique other than in the way they suffer for living in a pattern they don't believe they live in? This is why the old teachings that support what I'm describing to you all say the task is not to escape this nature, but to exchange it. Every true teaching, not to escape, not to improve, not to get a better view and all the rest, but to actually exchange this nature. Whoever shall lose their life, the same shall find it. On and on it goes. The Four Noble Truths, everything about an exchange. And if you get that far that you start to realize in this moment where I'm negative, it's not about finding some way to escape it. Tomorrow I'm going to get here, I'm going to do this. When I finally stop enabling these, all that nonsense, you realize, you know what? Right now, whatever is going on, this is where the exchange has to take place. Not now, but not later, but now. This is why, next big transition, still with me? My little group of negative nillies. This is why the wisdom traditions have always advised one thing, and they've hinted at it in different ways. I'm going to help you think about this. You've heard the expression, one should count their blessings? Yes. That's a lovely idea, isn't it? It is. No, it really is. Yes. Sometimes we go out, some students go out, and one of the things we will do is we'll raise a little glass and we will thank you, we'll thank the good Lord for the blessings of this work and our family and friendship. That's appropriate. So, but you know that. But what about, how does count the blessings tie into stop and smell the roses? What's the relationship between those two? Well, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? Or how about St. Paul, in your patience possess your soul? Sometimes pretty hard to be patient. How can I count my blessing when I'm bitter and want to remain bitter? Or how about this one? Count to 10 before you speak. If only you could do that. So what do all of those ideas, really variations on the theme of ancient teachings, what do all of those have in common? Can any one of you guess the single principle hidden in all of those things?
Wait.
Kate says wait, connected to patience. Nope.
Break the pattern. Break the pattern.
Well, go ahead and break it, Terry. You can't break the pattern. You are the pattern. What is implied in those ideas?
You couldn't do them unless you saw.
Well, in part, you couldn't even begin to consider something else unless you were to see these things. But here's the answer. Hidden inside of every one of those instructions is a single principle. And I'm going to spend the rest of the talk explaining it. Nice deep breath. Take a step back before stepping into the moment. Take a step back before stepping into the moment. How many of you know it's never a step back, it's always leap? because I'm spurred. I mean, literally there is something inside of us that wears spurs. And boy, when you feel that jab, you're off to the races. I'll keep the metaphor going for as long as I can. Something always leaps because it's spurred, and I believe it's an act of intelligence to be ahead of the curve, to explain to myself the conflict and make sure you understand, it understands the problem that I'm experiencing. So if the real principle behind all of those things, remember what they were? Stop and smell the roses, count to 10, count. What is the real things? Take a step back before stepping into the moment. Why? Why would stepping back, assuming we can do that, and you will understand if you want, in quotes, not how, but the necessity of it when we're done. Why is stepping back so important? Anybody guess? What does stepping back have to do with what we're talking about, which is changing this relationship we have to this pattern-making machinery? Anybody?
First shall be last.
First shall be last? No. Anybody?
Perspective on how to see it.
Because it reveals the larger picture. Because where I am, the background that actually is creating the experience, not the reaction creating the content, the content of that moment, the background is the experience. We think the experience somehow is separate from myself. No, this consciousness is in fact what I'm experiencing. But when I take a step back, suddenly I'm no longer looking at the moment or the person through that. I'm actually a little bit removed from it. I'm actually present to the background and the self acting out of it in that moment. Following me, everybody, as best you can? So that stepping back reveals, in quotes, this larger picture. And what does it entail now? Remember we talked about how this mind operates? It's object-oriented. Mm-hmm. Stepping back allows us to see not only the conditional object that seems before us. Now, I know I'm going to stretch you here. When I'm negative, I look out and I see what I think is a subjective object. I see the problem. It's clear. I see it. I'm saying that every object the mind falls on like that is a conditional object produced by the movement and content of itself as stimulated by the moment. So that this conditional object that seems before us, we can begin to see, wait a minute, how many times have I had this pattern? How many times have I been provoked this way? You can't, well, what's provoking me? A conditional object. My mind looks at you, experiences the past with you, whatever it is, and out of that comes all of the certainty I have that I have to straighten you out or escape you one way or the other, so that it's absolutely sure to me the conclusion that I've reached as a result of the background. Can you put that together? The conclusion I come to is because of the background, the consciousness seeing it. That background, that conclusion validates the experience. That's why I never question my own negativity. Do you like it when people say, you should look at yourself? You go, you look at yourself. I even made the face that I've seen some people make before. No, it's mind-blowing. Something validates my impatience when my impatience is killing me. Something validates my greed when greed is destroying me and the world. Something validates the enemies that I have. What in the name of God would validate me hating a human being unless it was hatred itself hiding through a pattern that promises if I just hate this person, get away from them, I'll be free. So I don't have any awareness at all that I'm stuck in a pattern-making machine that validates every punishing thought and feeling it comes up with from the content of itself that we're calling the background that we cannot see when it's establishing the experience. I can't say that better than that. Do you see this with me? Because one day when you actually see it, you will sober up. You'll understand. There's no moment when this isn't working on me. I walk into the restaurant, I walk into the home, I walk into my brother's house, wherever I go, it goes with me. That pattern making machinery, and listen to this, I said it at the start of the talk, looking for what it needs to ensure the pattern remains in place. Experience proves this if you're following me. I got to keep going. Now, if we see this, do we see it to some extent? Then it brings up even a deeper question. And this deeper question brings up an answer that once seen actually brings us to what are imaginable possibilities. And I do mean that, unimaginable possibilities. In the throes of some reaction that we know is part of what drives that pattern, and we're saying the way we begin to exchange that nature is to do what? What do we say? What do we say? We're going to do what? Step back. Ready? Into what? Because I kind of get it. I'm propelled, spurred into stepping into that reaction that drives the pattern that ensures a greater pattern grows and collects everything it needs to keep the pain in place. And now I get it. I should step back. But wait a minute. Step back into what? Holy cow, Batman. Step back into what? This is where we start to see something extraordinarily. Exactly what is it that I can step back into? I know it's possible. We step back into a larger field than the one defining us in that moment. Go slow. We step back into a larger field than the one defining us in that moment. In other words, we step back into a greater field of awareness that was there before the pattern established itself, and that reveals the pattern driving itself and the pattern maker all at the same time. And it'd be impossible to even consider that unless you're tired of stepping into the muck, stepping into the content of the mind that as you step into it, blames you for stepping into it, and then tells you who threw that muck that you just walked into. Everybody following me so far?
Yes.
So now I'm going to give you, I'm going to tell you how some of this can become practical, because I know this is a little bit challenging. So I'm going to tell you like a personal story. In a way, this is true, but I'm making it more blatant. So here I am, early one morning, and I'm looking out of my home. There's a bay that I look out onto. But as I'm looking out, all I'm looking at are the grasses in front of this little deck that I have, and they're pretty dried out. And as I look at these dried out grasses, I'm thinking, holy mother of pearl, we spent so much money on sod, and look at this stuff. What was the point? When's it going to rain? Is it ever going to rain again? So I look at the grass, and immediately, even though it seems like this is kind of a separate deal, I'm immediately in a pattern, aren't I? Please, please, please. And all I can see are the grasses. And all I am is aggravated that the grasses aren't doing what the grasses are supposed to do, which is to be green, so that I can look out and see green grasses on the other side of the hill. Now, here I am looking out at the grasses, and suddenly my attention is caught by the mangroves just on the other side of the grass, between the grass and the bay. Getting the picture? And I look at the mangroves, and my mind falls on them, and when it does, it's caught by the fact that the mangroves have been growing. So I don't really see the mangroves. What I see is how much it's going to cost to get them cut back, because they're starting to interfere with something that I'm not even looking at and don't even know is there, but I'm irritated that something is blocking the view of the bay. Still following me? Then I start thinking, well, it's not just the money, there's regulations. I mean, what if somebody catches us, cutting these mangroves back a little bit? We're going to have to hire a professional. No, that's so much money. So now I'm in another pattern. I was in a grass pattern before. Please. And now I don't see the grass anymore. All the grass is not even there. All I'm looking at is the problem with the mangroves. So the pattern of the grasses led to the pattern of the mangroves. And now I'm stuck in the mangroves, quite literally, wishing that the mangroves weren't the way they are. Here I am living in a nice home, pretty safe and secure, so to speak, and all I am is bugged by the mangroves. Now, am I bugged by the mangroves? Or is the pattern, the object of the mind wants that object to look like it's supposed to look like, and when it doesn't, the pattern is established and the pain follows on the heels of it. Please see it with me. So now I'm looking at this, and I can see all of this, and I'm bringing you in. I can see all of this tumult. You know what tumult is? I can see it. It's beginning, this is what you have to see, it's beginning to assemble itself into a fairly recognizable experience. Starting to feel that complaint, starting to feel this agitation again. So here I am, and I'm watching this pattern start to fall, when all of a sudden about 10 yards out, 20 from the grass, 10 from the mangrove, in the bay, some big fish jumps out of the water. Now, when that water leaps, when that fish leaps, it's usually because there's a predator underneath. That's why they usually leap. And the minute it leaps, I'm not thinking about the mangroves anymore. My mind is now off the mangroves, and it's on to the fact that maybe there's something big in the water, and it would probably be good to know if there was something big in the water. So the first pattern, the grass pattern, broken up by my attention going to the mangroves. Next, attention on the mangroves broken up by going to the fish in the water. It's still the same pattern, isn't it? Please, do you see it? Seems like different things. So the former identification with the first and second pattern is broken up, and it's broken up by something that's come out of the water. Now here's where it becomes interesting. Still not taking a step back. I'm still stepping into every one of these patterns, aren't I? But then by the grace of heaven, and it'll be for you if you do your work, suddenly I'm aware of the presence of the bay. Not the fish that came out of the water, but the bay itself that holds the fish under the water. And suddenly I experience this much broader body of water. And as I experience the broader body of water, I begin to experience a broader sense of self, because it's still subject to the content of itself. And yet the awareness of what is larger is releasing me from the limitation of the smaller. You following me still? You'll see how this goes. So the minute that this is there, suddenly I'm aware of how these thoughts were operating. The grass, the mangroves, and basically I'm released from one pattern of thought into another, and from another pattern into another until something breaks the pattern. Because now, for the first time, the attention, instead of the bay, it starts noticing the ripples from the fish that jumped out, how the wind affects placid areas, and others are moving. And next, I'm looking, the whole bay is alive. It's being moved. And it's being moved by something you can't see. So in a split second, now, instead of stepping into, in quotes, some pattern, I'm stepping back from the pattern because what I see is too great for the mind to hold. A completely different order of being has been brought forward by stepping back from the usual pattern of being identified with some pain or complaint connected to what the mind has fallen on. Please, are you still following me? So now I'm not just released from a pattern, I'm released from my identification with the pattern maker because I've stepped back from it, or I was invited to, encouraged to step back from it. So what seemed to me before a random revelation of different relationships, each one having their own meaning to me, suddenly they're all connected. And you can't separate any of them. And the mind, as it becomes aware of this larger field, realizes there's no way that it can think about the whole of that movement, the whole of that field. It's impossible. So it, in one sense, steps back from the limitation of a pattern, because on another level, it has stepped into the awareness of a larger pattern. So the background, using these words, changes. The background is no longer some me thinking about the object that has come to my mind. Now the background is this awareness of a field too great for thought to hold. You following me? And it doesn't end there. A seabird then flies across the water that I'm looking at. And when it flies across the water, what do you think happens? The background changes again. Why? Because suddenly I see there's space. There's air. There's a sky. I didn't know there was a sky when I was looking at the bay. I was drawn into a beautiful relationship with it, but it was still a pattern limited by the understanding. Now, the bird flies through it, and the next thing I know, its movement shifts my attention to what? To the hills filled with mangroves and houses and trees behind it. And now suddenly I'm looking at a picture 1,000 times bigger than the original grasses that had grabbed me the way they did. Do you understand the exponential way in which I'm describing this field of awareness growing? That's all I'm looking for. And then to the point, like petals of a flower unfolding as these revelations of broader backgrounds do, another realization altogether comes, created by all that had preceded it. What do you think the original, the whole background is? I said, into what do you step back? What do you think that is that you actually step back into? Awareness itself. You can't think I'm going to step back into awareness, but you can be aware of each progressive step that you enter into, that the world gets larger for you. How can the world get larger? The world can't get larger than it is. You are stepping into something that shows you how small the mind has been operating, how easily it gravitates to some pattern and becomes identified with it. So that the divine background itself becomes that which you see life through. It's the background. It's the background. It always has been the background. You know, you can't see anything without light. Did you know that? You can't see any movement without something being still. You can't see anything without light. You can't see movement without stillness. So that means light is the background for everything manifested in time, and that stillness is what reveals to you the movement of all that light reveals. Am I going too fast? So in a split second, it started, let's see. There's a definitive relationship between the background that I am looking at life through and the experience of that life. A definitive relationship. Because we've seen, if we see life through the background of a pattern of thoughts produced by reactions that drive that cycle around. That's how we see it. When you get upset with somebody, you don't know that your mind has already decided that person's a problem before they're a problem. So suddenly I realized, well, if that's the background, and I know it is, and an exchange has to be made, if you're following me, what's the exchange? Step back. Step back from that identity. You don't think to yourself, I'm going to step back from myself. I'm going to step back from my present perception of this moment into a perception that allows me to see the former perceiver. I'm going to step back from my relationship to this moment by stepping back from the former perceiver, by stepping into an awareness that was there without me knowing it was there, but by stepping back, suddenly I see all the content of that consciousness I could not see before. And that's the beauty of what I'm describing to you, because there is no end to stepping back. When you have an epiphany, you could say you're stepping back. The mind steps back into a broader understanding, doesn't it? And suddenly I see a truth I couldn't see before. And then a day later, a year later, 20 years later, I go, oh my God, I thought that was the truth. No, this is the truth. Why? Because now I'm living in a new world with a different background. So that truth continues to seemingly grow. When truth isn't growing at all, you are growing into the awareness whose background lets you see it is infinite in its capacity if you can just step back and step back and step back. Do you see it with me? Is it beginning to become clear? Because the same law as I'm describing operates inwardly. A reaction and a cause appear against a background. A reaction and its cause always appears against the background of the content of that mind that went into it. I can't have a negative reaction about you unless that background were already in place, ensuring that I would feel that way when you did what you did again. Please, do you see that with me? I don't want to go too quick, but I don't want to run out of time either. So here I am, and there's something, a sense of self, that I take to be me. Because I'm so identified with the pattern and the machinery that makes it, it never dawns on me that I'm not a machine, let alone a donut-making machine, meaning something that just holds the pattern, creates the pattern, reinitiates the pattern, not me. What do you think you do how many of you go into the past and think about people or problems you had? What do you think you're doing? That pattern, you say, let's strengthen that pattern so that every time you think about him or her or this, you can suffer a little bit more. And you go, oh, that's good. Give me one of those frosted, the donut illusion. No, we don't think that, but that's exactly what's happening if you can see it. So here is this sense of self that you can't separate from the conditioned pattern. Do you see it? Cannot separate this identity from the pattern that produces it. Now, we're so sure when this self and the pattern are there that we see properly and that there's little doubt whatsoever that I haven't understood the whole of it, we never question any of our negative reactions, let alone think to step back. So there's a story, we're going to go into it again a little more deeply, only look at it from a new set of eyes, stepping back. That's what a real school does, is it continues to help you set back, not by showing you something new, but by helping you to remember what you have forgotten you can see. Christ, he's in that marketplace or that square, and everybody's getting ready to stone this woman. You know, stone her, because the Jewish law says what do they call it when you, if you're an adulteress, you know, you got to kill the adulteresses. So everybody's getting ready to stone, and you know the expression. What did Christ say? And if you never heard it, this is what he said to the crowd. Let those of you who are without sin go ahead and cast the first stone. And the story goes, and by the way, it's an interior story. May have happened, but it's an interior story, talking about what happens when a higher part of you sees that you are caught in a pattern and about to punish yourself and someone else. Suddenly you can see. He said, go ahead and throw the first stone. And the story goes, nobody threw a stone. Why didn't anybody throw the stone? Why?
He saw the bigger picture.
Because Christ was saying, take a step back. Take a step back. See whether the character that you're about to stone, is your character better than who you're judging? Take a step back. See, when I'm going to judge you, my character is the best character there is. There's nobody that knows better than me that you should be stoned. Just looking at me like that, you should be thrashed. Cast the first stone. Wait a minute. Step back. Whoa. You know, so many times in my life, all I've ever done is blame you for how I feel when you look at me like that. When life goes this way instead of that way, all I've ever done is pick up a stone and throw it. When I do what I think I ought not do, when I do the evil I would instead of the good, I can't wait to stone myself. Take a step back. Why? Because I'll see the me that's about to stone me actually created the condition it wants to stone. It's one thing. And then you take that step back and you have to drop the stone, which means what? You break the pattern. You stop fulfilling the law that pattern has established by a surreptitious set of laws conditioned nature has produced, including socially. And then the stone is dropped because suddenly I'm under a new set of laws. Wow. What are the new set of laws? They belong to a different background. They belong to a different order of understanding. And I've stepped back into an understanding that can see I was about to act out of ignorance. Do you see this with me? So as they step back, they discover what? That the anger that they felt They've done the same thing, only not in the same way, perhaps. Now, shift, because we're getting near the end of the talk. How many judgments of others or yourselves would lose force if in that moment when you were busy holding your enemy's feet to the fire, or whether moment or person, how many of those judgments would fall away if in that moment you saw them as being the appearance of a pattern instead of the perception that you have of being the truth? What would happen? Well, I'm not going to participate in a pattern that puts me in a prison where I'm flogged, because this pattern of judging you or judging myself is very painful. But do you think to yourself when you're judging, and some of you, I can feel it in the room, some of you, you're filled with this judgment. And I'm so sure I'm right to suffer the judgment, because I wouldn't feel this way if you weren't like that. I'm saying to you, sheer nonsense. You're the one that suffers your judgments, no one else. Why? Because every time you judge, you step into a pattern that belongs to the past, that produces a sense of self in the present moment, and the sensation is so overwhelming, you don't know what to do with the pain except look outside of you for someone to blame for it. And there's the pattern. That's humanity's pattern. That's why there's wars. In scale, if you can see it. Rushing. Some of you, God, rush. The nature that rushes does what? Why does the nature that rush? Why? Because all I see is my life through the background that tells me if I don't get to the foreground, my goose is cooked. That's what, here's the background. Oh, I got so much, people responsibility. Is that not the background when you're anxious and rushing? What if this happens? Is that not the background? Yes. So I'm rushing to get away from the background that my mind is showing me has to be escaped. Can I escape the background my own mind makes? No. But it can be exchanged, can't it? How is it exchanged? What are the words?
Step back.
Step back. The act of remembering to step back restores proportion. The act of remembering to step back restores proportion. Making a mountain out of a molehill. Have you ever heard that right here? Yeah. So if I step back, suddenly I realize the mountain is because I have a little mole mind. I'm caught in something that keeps digging up the dirt. So the mountain I'm looking at is the result of my own efforts that I don't see. That's actually quite funny if you can see it. If you can see it through my mind's eye. So it restores proportion. Why does it restore proportion? Anybody? Because it returns us to an awareness of scale. There's no sense of scale when you're looking at something or someone or some moment that you don't want. The entirety of that scale of the moment is produced by the nature looking at it, determining the size of the thing it has to deal with, object-oriented attention. And what is the size of the thing the mind's trying to deal with, other than the mind has made it that size? Am I wasting my time? Because it's so freeing to watch your own three-ring circus. Because that's what you live in. The lions that you tame, they're not tame. You just have momentary control of them because you're holding a whip. Is it you holding the whip to try to see some of this with me? What was painful personally the moment before, when I can step back, suddenly has a new impersonal meaning to me. And that's the last thing that we want. We say, I want the impersonal life. I want an impersonal witness. No, you don't. But if I actually see that the event I'm experiencing is because I'm standing in a field made of the pattern of a mind producing background and sense of self accordingly, in that moment, I have no choice but to lay him down. That's the exchange. And that's the only way it can take place. That's what it means to lose your life. To give it up, not because you want to, but because you see it is absolutely, as Ecclesiastes says, futile, vain to keep it going. And it's pure vanity to try to ensure that what you're looking at remains in place so that the self that's looking at it can keep that established as its existence, at the cost of its existence, I might add. Step back. Give up. Not because I'm trying, that's the other thing. Not because if you take a step back because you're trying to give yourself up, you haven't given anything up. You're just in another pattern produced by a mind hoping to escape itself through some spiritual ideal. No, I step back because I'm tired of stepping into this pain. I step back because I'm tired of having enemies. I step back because I'm tired of being afraid. Step back because I'm tired of greed. You fill in the blanks. I step back because anxiety has never done anything except ensure that I'll be anxious tomorrow over something else. That's all it's ever done. Is that true or not? So I step back, and I step back into, if you will, a world that is far less personal than the one I was just in. Isn't that what all of the teaching is about, no matter who it is? I step, and please listen, and you see, and that's the problem. Because I don't want a world less personal. I want a world fabricated on what I personally think the world should be like. So impersonal schmersonal at that point, because the fact is, it's going to cost me something to step back. But is it actually costing me something if I step back properly? Or suddenly am I, like I was describing me and the mangroves and the bay, or suddenly am I looking at this world that has a lot more moving parts and a lot more interesting, because suddenly I'm living in a perceiver's life that isn't punished by what it's looking at, but rather is a participant in the broader field that it now witnesses. Do you see it with me? So stepping back is not an avoidance. It's not a withdrawal from life. It's actually how we enter into life more completely. Why? Because every step back reveals the background within which some former pattern exists. You'll see this as you grow spiritually. There's this illusion that I'm growing, and people can't wait to feed you nonsense. You're growing so beautifully. Nobody grows. You release. It's already done. God is good. Christ himself said, not I who does these works. On and on goes that. So here's the point. If I can step back and ever so quickly think to yourself, what is it that's very common to you in terms of feeling this prison, this pattern? We all know impatience, judgment, irritation, anxiety, having enemies. You fill in it like that. And then next time you catch it, just step back. Just see it and step back. Step back what? Into what? The awareness of that self and the pattern that's producing it. Step back. If you do that, what starts to happen is that you begin to realize, first it was just the grasses, then the mangrove, then the bay, then the bird moving, then the mountains, then the light itself. Then awareness itself. Because if you understand me, that's what you, in quotes, are stepping back into. But you can't step back into awareness. You remember you've always had that awareness. It's always been there. I go before you to make the crooked places straight. It's always been there. You're just returning home. So you don't step forward into the kingdom of heaven. You return to the kingdom of heaven by stepping back into a kingdom you never left, but that you've been deceived into believing you have by a nature that requires a problem so you can build a heaven and then find your purpose in life. Catch yourself. Catch yourself. I have to get to this. I'm not going to be able to. I want to get to this special writing. So Eric, if we can bring it up. This is a summary of all that I've described. And when we come back from the break, I will give you a specific exercise to help you practice this that we've described here. Let me know when it's up. It's entitled With Thanks. My body is at war with passing time, the heart out of rhythm, let alone how to rhyme. Yet something watches quietly, untroubled by the passing show, and in that stillness discovers neither thinker nor its thoughts, none of the patterns they contrive to make, none are my own. None are my own. The divine has seen to it that there is no end to the appearance of creation by ensuring that creation forever gives birth to itself in some new form, but that each new form that creation reveals was there for it to grow into, in this impossible, beautifully elaborate, magnificent, and there's no word for it. It's not a system. This is what you and I are meant to live in which you can gradually begin to experience if you're willing to step back. Because each time you do, you'll see there was a larger world waiting for you to step back into it. Because now you're no longer identified with the background and what that background is making out of you. Now you're interested in seeing what the divine will make out of your life if you will step back into it and step back into it and step back into it. Work at remembering that before you take a step into any given moment, step back. You do that and you will see miracles. Take a break, we'll come back, I'll give you that exercise and we'll have our questions and answers.
Welcome back, everybody. Glad you're still here, if you are. And we're going to have a guy is going to give a quick key lesson, not necessarily a quick, but he's going to give a key lesson for us. And then it's time for you to be able to speak directly to Guy or write questions for Guy in your chat boxes. And if you do have any problems, by the way, do reach us by the chat boxes or the question boxes on whatever platform you're on. And we are experiencing some syncing problems with GoToWebinar, which the back end is working hard to try to see if we can get to the bottom of it. So I think that's all we need right now. Guy, you want to come back on, and I will get out of here for a minute.
Yes. So I said that I would give you an exercise, and I can only lead the horse to water. I can't make you drink, but I can assure you if you'll practice this, you'll see things that you can't see otherwise. So basically, we've been talking about stepping back and always stepping back into something that was there for us to step into and step back into before we did it. That was part of the point. So how do we exemplify that? How do we bring that to life? And here's the answer. Ideally, if you live in nature or outside, but it doesn't have to be. You can be sitting in your own room. I'll do it right now as I'm sitting here. There's a camera in front of me. So the first part of the exercise is I'm going to look at the camera. I can be aware of the camera. But as soon as I become aware of the camera, I'm going to notice that there's a background to the camera, and I wouldn't see the camera if it weren't for the walls behind the camera. So now my attention goes from the camera to the walls behind the camera while I keep the camera in mind. Suddenly I see the background of the camera and the camera. Now, suddenly, if I will, I can see past the walls into the next room, or outside, as it were. So now I move from my mind, the object of my mind, the camera, into realizing I wouldn't see the camera if it weren't for the walls behind it, and I'm aware of that. That's the background. And then one more time, I start to see, you know what, I can see the walls, the camera, all at the same time because there's a background behind them. There's another room. There's light behind it. There's a forest, whatever it might be. So in a split second, I've gone from one background to another background to a third one. And I never saw the third background when all I saw was the camera, or when all I saw was the walls. And that's the point. That's all we see is the object of the mind. And the mind has been trained to find an object so it can create the pattern that it does from it. So if you practice this exercise, you'll start to see something that can't be taught. You'll start to realize, you know what, there's always a background I'm not aware of. And if you keep going with it, then you realize the real background is the seer. That's the real background of everything. That which everything unfolds within. That which sees all movement and understands it without taking thought about it because it's not separate from it. Then you get into this idea of a world without a center, of the fact that there is something that can observe without being identified. Because you've begun to explore background, begin exploring, stepping back into a world that you don't see. You can't see the background until you step back from it. And you can step back and step back and step back into a completely different world, a whole new you, if you understand what I've just described. Let me ask the students here, do you understand the exercise? That's it for me.
All right, I understand that Debbie is there. We'll start with her, and everyone else, do raise your hand. We can start a queue to be able to speak directly to Guy. So there's a little hand icon that you can click, and we'll get you in. But let's go ahead and start with Debbie.
So I've got emotion coming up here a lot. Very thankful, Guy, because I feel like I experienced that, what you're talking about, yesterday. And I was sitting I live on a lake, and no, I don't live on a lake, excuse me. I walk to a lake in the morning to just, contemplate and be away from my house, which just is, I just keep myself busy when I'm in my house. And so I was working to contemplate, and of course all these thoughts come up. And you've talked about being in something more expansive, which is exactly what you're talking about here. But you made it much firmer inside me. And I was sitting at the lake, and my thoughts were taking me into these prisons. And I just tried to, expand my view. And it was so beautiful what happened. I just noticed the ripples. I noticed the diamonds on the lake. I noticed the beautiful, just the sun, the clouds, and this blue heron came flying right across my path. And I just thought, this is for me right now. And it just gave me a sense of something bigger. And that's
it's a marvel, because a moment before, I'm trapped in a world that thought has made, that thought tries to escape by taking more thought. And then suddenly, I'm not in that world and its background. Suddenly, I am, if you want to use these words, the background of a much broader world. That awareness is the background of what I see, and I'm experiencing that. And it doesn't have Debbie in it. It has something kind of nice in it. And I'm released for a split second. And in that moment, I realize, what if that's true in scale? What if there's no moment that I can't be present to this idea that you could do it right now while you're talking to me? Instead of being fastened on whatever the mind is doing, can I see the background behind you and see myself at the same time? Mm-hmm. See, then I'm entering into a world that's already there. It's just not a personal world. And that's the difference. Am I willing to make that exchange? And at some point, if you see all this clearly enough, not a question if I'm willing to make this exchange. My new will becomes the wish to fulfill this possibility that's always been present and that I've been limited to experience because of my present nature.
Yeah, it takes me back to that sentence. Just stop thinking about yourself.
Stop it.
Stop it.
All right, Guy, we have no one raising their hands or no written questions. So if anybody in either of the rooms wants to come in, okay, now I see some hands go up. All right, let me start with Frida. I'm going to unmute you, Frida. And by the way, if anybody wants to be on camera, I'm just going to say this now, then just let me know, because we'd like to see you if you can. So I will ask Frida, would you like me to, do you want to be on camera?
First, let's get her on the
Yeah, let's get
mic
her
first.
on mute. I asked her to unmute. So Frida, can you unmute you? There you go.
Yeah?
There you are. Hi, Frida.
Yeah, I want on camera. I think he's doing it now.
Okay. There you go.
Hello, guys.
Hi, Frida.
Hello.
Let everybody see Frida.
Can we see your Eric's got it? Eric's got it.
Okay, it's a little commotion here. Hi, Frida. How are you? Nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you. I see you all the time, but it was a key on my keyboard what put the camera out. So if someone has troubles, you hear me?
Oh yeah, see you, hear you, all good.
Yeah, I want to thank you for the talk. And last Sunday I was so afraid, and this week I was thinking about it, and then I think it was a blessing that suddenly I could see it from, I could step back and see what Frida was all doing. Mm. I was all in that fear, and that was great to see. That's what you're talking about.
Yes. You had stepped into that fearful pattern produced by that person that can't wait, who says, I don't want to be afraid, but who keeps stepping back into the situation that produces it. And then suddenly, if you see it, it begins a process of dissolution. That's the whole thing. literally begins to dissolve that certainty, that self, and the exchange becomes a little easier to make because you've seen the truth of yourself, and that's what helps you do it.
Yeah. And most of the times you do it 100 times again, and then suddenly, I think it's a blessing that you can see it.
It is indeed. And it's nice to see you, Frida.
Yeah. Okay. See you next time.
Yes, you will.
All right, Guy, I understand that Patricia is there, and then we have one other person in there. Who would you like to go next?
Patricia, please.
Okay.
I've noticed for a long time, and I think this connects with the pattern maker that you're talking about. I've noticed that we tend to live what I call a secondary life, where we're not in the moment. We're living from like an old picture, or we're living from something that just happened. We're thinking about it, and then we live the life. I've seen that. I had a party for someone years and years ago, and I seen the person was never there, but when she thought about it a little while, she would come and make a comment or thank me or whatever. And I've always noticed that since, and I do it, everybody does it. It's like we live thinking from thought later, and we don't even at the time know it. It's the best I can do.
No, you're doing fine.
Okay.
The point is that our mind is forever making an object of the last reaction.
Right.
And then as it makes the object, it falls into the pattern that that thought is already connected to. And before you know it, you're living what might call a retrospective life. You're living a life that has nothing to do with actually unfolding,
Right.
but rather dealing with the sensations produced by being caught up in that pattern. And it just on and on it goes. That's right.
I guess that's why we cling to pictures so much too.
And
That's the only way we live it.
And this is why Christ and all of the true teachers have always said the same thing. A person thinks they're alive and they're not. Real life begins as you see what death is, and not before. Then, as the saying goes, you die to death. From the unreal lead us to the real. Yeah. Back to you, Doug.
Okay, we have Shoshana in the queue here. I'm going to unmute you, Shoshana. Can you unmute yourself? And
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hi, Shoshana.
yes.
Hi, it's been a while. I'm so glad that I jumped on today. Thank you for the talk. It's always so timely. It brought me so many realizations. One of the main ones is how I keep myself so busy with little thoughts and almost micro-managing, focusing on micro things to keep the bigger thoughts away. And so I was going to go on a meditation. I'm supposed to be writing right now and writing a course. And my head was so filled, I was like, I should do a meditation. And then I thought about it, and it's just another form of distraction.
Good.
Because my mind is so busy. Then I saw you were up, and I was like, Guy, I haven't seen Guy in so long. And I was so happy to jump on, and it was so perfect. Just the analogy of going from the grass to the mangroves, to the fish, to the bird, to the sky. And it made me realize every day when I walk my dog, I'm back in New York City, and I'm just surrounded by perspectives, my own and other people. So I've been doing a thing. I say the Lord's Prayer on the way to the dog park every morning to keep my mind clear.
Yeah.
And I do notice when I'm not paying attention. So I make myself say it again until I'm present during the whole time. But I've never taken the time when I get to the park just to stop looking at the squirrels and the birds and the people and to look up at the sky and just expand myself. And so today's talk was just such a gift to understand. Sometimes all I need to do is just look up at the clouds and rise myself out of everything
Yes.
to be part of something that I can't see.
Yes.
And that will allow me a little bit more freedom. So
And let me just help you broaden your understanding and the subsequent experience that will follow as a result. You don't really need, Shoshana, to look up at the sky. You just need to open your eyes and become aware of the fact that you can't see anything without the sky and the space around it. So that we're not trying, again, to deliberately broaden our life what we're hoping to do is to bring ourselves into a life, a world that is already broader, a background that holds everything, including the observer, so that we're no longer struggling to deal with what this mind grabs and makes an object out of it. So do your work. That's good work that you've described. Give me a report next time we talk, okay?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, Guy, we have Wayne here. So I'm going to scoot over, and here's Wayne.
Hello, Guy.
The Waynester.
I am here. I wanted to thank you for the talk today. It was really helpful because I've been struggling with this mind. And so there's a there's a song that came out not all that long ago, I guess. It's called, and basically talked about the ghost in the machine. So your key lesson, you explained the key lesson really well, and at least for me, and I appreciate that because this mind is a ghost. I'm getting to see that more and more. I've been suffering a lot lately because, of course, of identification with that, and what's you're helping me see is to step back from it, because I've been identified with these thoughts this whole life, and this work is it's not about getting away from our thoughts, but by seeing the motion and the movement of the mind, and what it and how quickly I identify with these thoughts. And I don't really have a question, but I'm always looking because I'm learning about suffering myself, because I've been so impatient with this life, and so identified with all this ghost machine.
Yeah.
And I'm learning how to. You're showing us how to step back out of it and see a greater picture. And I just wanted to thank you again for what you've shown.
Indeed, Wayne, and a thought, an encouragement. When we use the word mind, it's such a loaded word, an object. But it is possible to see the movement of the mind through the eyes of another order of mind that knows those movements. It's not the movements itself, those thoughts move through it. And the more clearly you can see the thoughts that move through the mind, the less tempted you are to identify with those thoughts, because you realize you're observing something that isn't you. You are now looking at that order of yourself from a background that momentarily exists for you and that allows you to see. Then you don't struggle with thoughts that you can see. We struggle with thoughts we can't see. You don't struggle with thoughts you can see. Mm-hmm. If you could really see a thought, you wouldn't struggle with it. You would understand what it is. We don't really see a thought. We think about a thought and call that seeing.
Yes. Yes.
So you keep up your good work.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have some more in the queue here, but real quick, I was using that exercise. I'm standing over here in the room,
Yes.
looking at Wayne, and my first thing is, what's next? Who's going to be on next? Am I going to goof this up? What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, I could take a step back and I could see Wayne. I could actually feel Wayne.
Yes.
And I knew beyond Wayne, there's people in the other room.
Yes.
And I know beyond that. And it was like there was no thought in it.
Yes.
It was just a completely new dimension just by using that exercise you
Yes.
said. So thank you for that.
I can't, again, we are meant to live in a world that is not bound by time. No pattern exists outside of the time-making mind that produces it. So you have a glimpse of something that cancels time. brings an end to the illusion of distance between yourself and the world that you're in. Work at it. Everybody should work at it. That's what the heart of hearts is hoping to return to that timeless space. Let's go on with what you've got, Doug, please.
Okay, we got 3 more names in the queue. And again, I'll just remind everybody, if you want to be on camera, let me know. And we're going to start with Fiona. I'm going to unmute you, Fiona.
Yeah, camera's good.
Camera's good. Okay. There you go.
Hello.
Fiona.
What Doug was saying really leads perfectly into what I was gleaning from the talk on. There is a kind of internal monitor, and my experience is totally on what I could see as in one thing, and that one thing I'm seeing is then dictating what I think and dictating the whole experience.
Yes.
And so, and that falling back into what's already done, it's not trying to release or trying to change anything. It really softens the focus, quite literally softens the focus, and then the body relaxes more.
Yes.
Literally notice that quite, it really is a big feeling, just allowing the body to just soften, which is clearly, much better clarity, and that's the only chance of anything kind of true coming through, because it just takes away from that.
It's the
one-dimensional.
It's the true yoga, isn't it? Union.
Yeah.
I'm reunited. I've never been separate like the prodigal son. I'm reunited when I step back. I'm reunited with a world that was there waiting for me to step back into it. And then I step back from that, and I step back from that. And I'm not creating a union. I'm realizing a union that was waiting for me to enter into it. Yoga, the true yoga.
Yes, for every moment of, no matter how busy you might be, it's just incredible, though, how much we need to keep reminding ourselves that internal monitor just takes over.
Yeah. We struggle not with flesh and blood, but with powers and principalities. It'll begin to grow in you this understanding that powers and principalities are not talking about the idiotic governments and the political issues that run and ruin this world. We start to see that all of that idiocy belongs to a broader unconscious nature that does govern everything presently, and that we are governed by without knowing it. Then we begin to realize what it means to take back our life. The real revolution is an interior revolution and requires an exchange, not a command or a control.
Thanks so much for the guidance. Priceless. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Fiona. Always nice
good
to see you.
All right, thank you, Fiona. We're going to go next to Steve. Steve, let's see. Here you are. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Steve.
I'm unmuted. I want to see how the camera works.
Okay, I will give you an invitation. There you go. You have to unmute your camera. You're set to go, Steve. There you go.
Okay, well, all right, there it is. Good job. You guys you're doing an awesome job.
That's okay, Steve. I can see you. Nice to see you. You can sit down back there. Be comfortable.
You can see me from there?
Oh, yeah.
I can see myself on the camera. All right.
Okay.
Well, hey, what's up? How's Florida? How's Florida?
Oh, how's Florida? It's good. Thanks for asking.
I'm being given things to do. What something is given something to do, and I really am not qualified, but something gets it done. So it's really fun and exciting sometimes.
That's good, Steve. Doing what we've been asked to do and doing it as consciously as we can, stepping back from whatever anxiety or nervousness, self-doubt that might want to come in, that's all invaluable for your work. Just stay close, persist with your wish to be free, and do the very best you can every moment you are able to remember your work is to step back, watch Steve, and then wait for the next instruction, which will come out of that awareness you've stepped back into. Okay?
Stop, drop, roll backwards, and then observe.
You got it, bud. We'll see you again.
No, don't ask.
All right, we are back. We have Yolanda next in the queue, and then Ellie is sitting here next. So let's go to Yolanda. Yolanda, go ahead and unmute yourself.
We will take Yolanda, then Eric's in the chair, and then we will go to Ellie, who will be the last person we will speak to today.
Okay. Yolanda, are you
I'm okay with the camera.
okay? Okay, give you an invitation. There you go.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Yolanda.
Hey, it's good to know that you're in Florida.
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's good. So I feel at this point in my life that I am being called to a more impersonal life.
Yes.
So I really enjoyed the idea of the exchange. I was reading this morning, I think it was in Mark, where it mentioned you must lose your life, you must sell all, kind of a thing.
Yes.
So you have to sell all. And that's what this talk reminds me of, the need to sell this identity that I'm so wrapped up in consistently. And the interesting thing is, the more I'm seeing it, when I see that the mind is just wrapped up in its own creation, I'm released from that. I feel a release from that image maker and the,
Yes.
the whole business.
Yes.
But no sooner am I released
Yeah.
and I return home that another creation surfaces. And so literally I decided to watch myself this weekend. That was my homework.
Yeah.
And it just kept happening. So the real question that I had is, you mentioned a little while ago, I wrote it down, that we're caught up in thinking instead of seeing. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between thinking about a thought and seeing the thought?
Sure. It is not understood, but it is nevertheless a fact that can be observed, Yolanda, that, as the teachings have always pronounced, that the thinker and the thought are not separate. For us, the way we are, I have a thought. And I believe that the sense of I, having that thought, is different than the thinker of that thought. I am not separate from the thought because I have it. In truth, that identity is a creation of the thinker and the thought that justifies it, that validates it. So we don't see this because when I have, in quotes, a thought, that thought is the object of my mind, is it not? When I have a thought, that thought is the object of my mind. Yes or no? Mm-hmm. So if it is the object of my mind, then that mind has made what? An object out of something that has no definition, has no outline even other than the content of the thinker that has formulated that thought. So the thinker is looking at its own thought and believes that what it's looking at is other than itself, and it is not. To be able to see that is the beginning of separation from this illusion of thinker and thought being separate to the ability to step back from that pattern and pattern maker and start to see, wow, I thought I gave rise to that thought. Who would give rise to the thought of hating somebody? Who would give rise to the thought of a fear? We are not made in the spirit, God did not create the spirit of fear. All of these things begin to take on new meaning because for the first time we become the observer of a thought instead of the one serving it. So now I begin to watch the thoughts, and as I do, I will become aware of that which is giving these thoughts their life. Where does a thought get its life, Yolanda, other than from the thinker that believes it is actually other than the thing it's imbuing with life in that moment? I have a thought I don't want. What happens when I have a thought I don't want? I resist it. Well, how can I resist my own thought? Unless the thinker and the thought are the same thing, and when the thought comes up, there's a reaction. Now the thinker goes, I don't want that experience, and around it goes. You have to see it, Yolanda. You'll never, in quotes, think your way into clarity about the difference between the seer and the thinker. But the more you step back, the more evident it will become to you, this difference, and that difference will produce the redemption, the true exchange, because I can no longer be personally identified with something I know isn't me to begin with. I hope that helps a little bit.
It does. One clarification. So when you say the thinker and the thought is one thing, I can see that. So who is the thinker? Am I the thinker? Is it a nature that's doing the thinking?
It is a nature that's doing the thinking. And the same, it is the fallen consciousness.
The fallen.
That's the knowledge of good and evil, the fall into the opposites, a divided nature, legion, quite literally. So it never stops thinking, and it has never stopped thinking, and it thinks it can think itself into some kind of safety or peace when every thought it generates creates an identity, then stuck on and identified with that thought, that belief, and then it'll go to war over that thought or belief that's supposed to be about the nature of peace. And you can just see what a snake pit it is. The true Tower of Babel having fallen, quite literally, and we need to extricate ourselves from its ruins, which we do by stepping back and recognizing our relationship to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One last question. Are you doing talks
Yeah,
in
no,
Florida?
Yolanda, we've got a line of people still, so
Oh, okay.
I have to limit it to one. Write it down. If I don't answer it between now and next Sunday, you and I'll have another chat, okay?
Okay, all right.
Okay.
I got Eric is there?
Yep.
Right here. I thought this, something for me connected, especially with the words personal and impersonal. And it was something Vernon Howard said, and I don't know if I'm going to have it exactly right.
Doesn't matter.
But that this lower nature has access to your personal psychology.
This lower nature is your personal psychology.
Let me think about that a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it has access to it.
Right. And that connects perfectly to the whole talk, really, because personal versus impersonal,
yes,
and pattern, getting you to focus,
drawing you
into focus on something
that it puts up
there,
yeah,
including weird little things that you may have done in the past.
Yeah. Can't wait to get you involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
100%, Eric.
Yeah, that's it.
Good.
All right, Guy, we have Dr. Ellen here.
Well, let's go, if we can, Ellie, come sit there, but let's go to Casey, who has a question in the queue.
Doug's gonna have to switch.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Ellie's there. Hi, Ellie.
Hello.
You're fine.
I wanted to get up and share an experience I had, and then Ellen came in and said, "That's stupid." But then you talked about yoga, and the experience was something that happened in yoga class. So I thought, well, maybe it fit.
Must be fate.
Yeah, and it was an experience of the opening of the aperture, but happening within me. So I was in a position and I was very much concentrated on how uncomfortable I was. and and then I became aware of my body, the whole body, and how it was able to do things that it wasn't able to do before, and that kind of opened, there was an opening to more. And then I became aware of the music and how I was in the music and my body, and suddenly this feeling of gratitude just washed through, and an awareness of just of like another whole level. And it didn't last very long, but there was like this whole opening of Ellen to another level, and like you said, that is always there.
Always there.
But she's not there.
On the other side of the resistance is the flow. I reach peak resistance and I stay with it. So uncomfortable. All my mind is focused on my body. What am I? Why? How come? And then all of a sudden it shifts, because the energy that, instead of being wasted in further resistance, opens you up, and suddenly you're aware of your body, you're aware of the music, you're aware of the sound in the room, maybe there's the smell of everything suddenly pours in. It was always there, but now you're no longer having a personal experience of Ellen doing yoga. Rather, you're experiencing the yoga of Ellen in that moment, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it just so beautifully explained in your talk today.
Glad I can help. You bet, Ellie. Nice to see you. Keep up
Good to
your
see
work.
you. Yes.
Keep going.
I will.
Okay.
All right, we have one more, and it's Casey in the queue. And Casey, I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Happy to be on camera, whatever's easiest for you, sir. It's kind of you to let me
No
comment.
problem. Just sent you an invitation. Go ahead.
Hopefully you can hear and see me. Okay, sir.
I can hear and see you just fine. Hi, Casey.
It's a pleasure, Guy. I've had the privilege of running across your website, I guess 2 years ago, and I've made an effort. It's not been consistent, but it's been an effort to dive deeper into some issues. I got sober in 2003 from a previous childhood trauma I thought I had addressed. I find myself in a pattern, and that pattern is very consistent, even with my quote unquote sobriety.
Right.
I would use terms like in the rooms as a dry drunk, I guess is the only way to describe it.
Yeah.
My wife has been consistent in the understanding that, when I am not at my busiest, which when I'm not finding things to keep me engaged, I tend to, no matter what the circumstances, put myself in a place at work where I'll create an antagonist, no matter how healthy my environment is. And then, create this narrative in my mind where it's me against them, no matter what. And
Right.
It's almost gotten to the point now where it's a self-sabotaging
Yes,
occurrence.
for sure.
I have been in positions of strength at work where I've done great things for companies, but I will call it my 15 minutes of fame, where I will find myself toilet bowling into a emotional moment and cut people off, become impatient, become sarcastic, not have the ability to allow them to mitigate, manage, and produce as a team. This pattern in today's moment is more than just a God wink, because I've had a pretty tough 10 days where I've placed myself back in a self-sabotaging 15 minutes of fame. So I've lost a contract to a job, and today's meeting / ability to find this email was more than fortuitous. My wife's last comment to me before she went, she needed space on Friday, was, we don't understand it. You are an amazing father. You are an amazing brother. You care for your wife. You care for your children. You care for your mother. But yet you have these distinctive moments where you are less than favorable, which puts you in this place, no matter about, puts you in this place where you're not welcome.
Yeah, that's a euphemism, less than favorable.
So I just, I'm sitting here kind of sitting in my own stew. I'm on 7 pages of your wisdoms, and I'm just kind of, the one comment you made about your spurs are not how the rest of the world sees objects.
Yeah.
I have to exercise and understand, no matter with my sobriety or not, this is not working. Sorry. So.
Yes, let me make a couple comments, Casey. I trust they'll help. I'm going to look a little bit underneath some of what you said, but address it at the same time. First and foremost, we are born into, and I use this word as a singularity, we are born into a world. We are born into a level of consciousness that is inseparable from the world it has made, and that in that consciousness, in that world, we are literally torn apart. We are told on one hand to be a certain kind of person. On the other hand, the world within us knows nothing at all of that morality, of that goodness, of that kindness, knows nothing of that. And so I'm in a constant conflict with a world that says I should be like this, and I can't be like that, except when extreme measures I will make myself be like that, so that not only will others see me in this favorable light, but I'll see myself in this favorable light. So I'm an actor in a world. I don't know I'm an actor, but the pressure of being an actor is incredible. And it begins to take its toll, and for some it leads to alcoholism, others it leads to workaholism, others it leads to complete withdrawal, detachment. Each and every one of us becomes the incarnation of this conflict trying to escape itself through yet some other principle or power that it will find itself in, the next pattern. So I'm suffering because I'm caught in a pattern, and then the mind comes up with another pattern. And the more it makes like this, Casey, the more that anger sits down there. So then by the grace of God, and it is you, myself, anyone else, finds a real work. And the real work says, listen, you've got to drop this dichotomous relationship that you have, because how can you be, as your wife says, a godly man at home and a monster at work? How is that even possible? How can I be that same person? And that's what you're struggling to understand, instead of recognizing the fact of it, that there is no godly man at home, and in truth, there's no monster at work. There's a nature that takes on whatever the character is that brings this up out of that nature. So at home, it's easy to be a godly man, by and large. But at work, it's impossible, because my mind has created these patterns and produced enemies and the prison of this work and how empty and dry it is. So I'm in a constant storm. So you tell me, what happens to a man in a constant storm, other than the push, the power to get out of it gets bigger, and the anger gets bigger. I'm more out of control, not more, less in control. Now here's the thing. That has to be understood, not resisted. It can't be met with comparison, which says I should be or I shouldn't be. It has to be with an awareness by stepping back and seeing all of this conflict is because I'm living in an unseen conflict produced by a comparative mind. So that literally, in one sense, the wheat begins to be separated from the chaff. Formerly, I thought I'm the wheat and there's the chaff. No, there's no wheat separate from the chaff, and I can't separate it, Casey. You can't save Casey. It's impossible. But you can see Casey can't be saved, and then let that awareness bring about the redemption, the real exchange that's meant to take place when at last Casey understands my task is to step back into another life and watch as best as I can what happens to me when I'm there. And when I fail, when I fall down, I'm not going to let Casey jump on me with both feet. I'm not going to let my wife and everybody else say, see, you missed the mark. You can't do this. I'm going to stay true to what I know. And then I'm going to do the best I can with what I know. And then I'll go back and do the best I can with what I know again. And if I do that with God as my witness, and He is, you will see what I'm describing to you, which is the beginning of a freedom that no thought can produce, because at last you've stepped out of the world of Casey's thoughts and the torment inherent in it.
You're very gracious with your time, and even more so with your ability to see through the what I create as dilemma.
Stay in the storm, Casey. Stay in the storm. People think that when the prodigal son finally woke up and decided he was going to go back home, that it was a cakewalk. It wasn't a cakewalk. There wasn't a step on the way back there that wasn't a nightmare, because it was still leaving a world that it tempted it promised it, if I just did this, and yet it's going home to something it doesn't know. What am I going to be met with if I actually leave myself behind? What's waiting for me? That's why it has to be so clear to you that what's waiting for you if you don't change is hell. So it isn't a question of, do I seek heaven? I give up hell. I've called hell my life, but not knowing it was my life. Now I see it. Now I leave it, and I deal with what happens every step along the way. Okay? Stay close, Stacy. We'll help each other, okay?
Yeah, I appreciate you, Guy. I appreciate you very much.
Okay, man. Bye for now. I think that's it, yes? Katie?
Yeah, that's it, Guy. No one else.
Okay.
Back to you.
I'm signing off. Step back, step back, step back. Bye, everybody.
I'm going to have to listen to that because